I'm Mike Monzingo, doing it a little bit differently today. We're going to be chatting with Jeremy Spike Cohen. He was the 2020 vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. He is also the founder and CEO of You Are the Power. Spike, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thank you for coming in. When I got the opportunity to chat with you, I thought this will be an interesting conversation because, as the listeners of this show know, I'm a conservative guy, but I've got libertarian leanings. You might call me libertarian curious, maybe.
Conservatarian. Yes.
There you go, conservatarian. So I figured, this would be a great opportunity just to talk about the whole libertarian message and the movement, and who better than somebody who was the VP candidate back in 2020? We'll get to that in a little bit, but tell me a little bit about yourself, the journey, how you went from web designer to one of the more recognizable voices in libertarian politics.
All right. Well, I'll try to make the briefest version of this. I was born in 1980. No, I probably don't need to go back that far. So I've been described as a serial entrepreneur. I don't know if having a handful of businesses that I've worked with qualifies as that, but I had a successful career. I was diagnosed with MS in 2016. That kind of led me to rethink my priorities a little bit, and as a result of that, I ended up getting more into politics. I thought I'd dabble in that. Apparently did pretty well. I ended up running for vice president, getting third place. Yeah, a little bit of dabbling. I got third place. It's a very distant third place, but it was still third place. I never got my medal. Anyway, so I did that. And coming out of that, I realized we have a lot of growing to do in the movement, in the libertarian movement in general. There's also a lot of people that can't wait for us to grow political power to fight against government overreach now, today. And we have a lot of activists who want to do something more than, lose every 2 to 4 years. So that's why I started You Are the Power.
So, the thing about the libertarian movement that kind of attracted me is very much the live and let live attitude. Yep. I grew up here in Southern California. I'm a native of the desert here. And it's just, maybe it's my experience growing up here in California. Maybe it's just, I don't know how my political leanings ended up developing. But to me, it's like if you're not hurting anybody, it doesn't concern me. It doesn't bother me. So however you want to live your life is perfectly fine with me. So that's kind of what attracted me to the libertarian movement. But what is it to you? I know it's more than that. It goes deeper than that. That's kind of surface level.
To me, it's that. But I would say it's more just the acknowledgement that when you put a relative handful of people in charge of centrally planning everything, that doesn't go well. Mm-hmm. It's not going to go well, which is why, very often, and this isn't true of everyone, but most voters think the problem is we have the quote unquote wrong people in charge. Well, I don't know, guys. I'm thinking after about, nearly 250 years going, that we haven't quite found the right people yet. I'm starting to think maybe we should just trust ourselves and each other to try to figure things out, at least at the more local and state level, than to try to have this gargantuan federal government run up tens of trillions of dollars in debt in our name and hundreds of trillions of dollars of worth of future unfunded liabilities in our children and grandchildren's name, and make a mess of things in the process.
So getting rid of that kind of centralized government, bringing things, the control of the power back to the local level, kind of the 10th Amendment style of governance is what you're really into.
Yeah, I know it's a radical thing, but I think we should look at the Constitution and say, you know what, this might be a good way to run our government. Yeah.
So for Republicans in the audience and maybe the Democrats that I haven't run off just yet, which was not my goal. Everybody's welcome here on the KNEWS Morning Show. I just know that sometimes my point of view might send some people running. But what are things that the libertarian movement and the Democrats and the Republicans have in common? Because there's certainly some ideals that are shared by certain sects of all three of these parties.
Yeah, so I think the libertarians in general recognize that you cannot continue to run up massive amounts of debt. We recognize that you cannot continue to spend more money than is coming in, and they're already taking too much money to begin with. Like, the government is just too large altogether. So I'm sure a lot of Republicans are really happy right now when they hear me say that, where I might start to lose them when I say part of that oversized government is our military and our massively too large footprint that we have around the world, which hasn't really demonstrated itself to stop terrorism in any real way. There's been tremendous amounts of blowback from that. The war on terrorism brought us more terrorism, just like the war on drugs brought us more drugs. Maybe some Democrats are happy now, so I can run them off by saying that the war on guns has brought us more crime. And so just in general, I think the reason why there are some things that Republicans will jive with us more on, and maybe a handful of things that Democrats jive with us more on, is we're consistent in the belief that individuals and individuals working voluntarily together should be able to make decisions for themselves, provided that they're not harming anyone else's life, liberty, or property.
So how is it that you, or like, what's I guess the blueprint for getting those libertarian ideas kind of injected into the conversation? Because the two-party system, you kind of get pushed out to the side. It's very black and white, right and left. How do you get the libertarian blueprint out there? How do you start injecting that into the conversation?
That's why I'm less and less involved in campaigning and elections and political parties, is precisely the answer to that question, which is I don't know that we can using the electoral process right now. Even if you made ballot access equal, which right now we spend millions of dollars and fight in court just to even be allowed on the ballot, while Republicans and Democrats get automatic entry on the ballot, and they get hundreds of millions of dollars worth of funding for their campaigns and their primaries and their conventions. We get none of that and actually have to pay money to fight in court just to get on the ballot. Even if you took all that away, even if you took away the Commission on Presidential Debates, cartel on debate access, you would still deal with the fact that the majority of people think that you either vote left or right, quote unquote. You either vote Democrat or Republican, and voting anything else is either a protest or a waste of time. And we aren't going to be able to demonstrate that. It is still a binary choice, but the binary choice is between freedom and more of the same. The only way we're going to do that is to demonstrate it out in the streets, and that's what we do at You Are the Power. We're doing that instead of saying, hey, vote for this person who has a very low likelihood of winning, almost all likelihood of losing. Instead, we say, hey, here's this person in your backyard that has this terrible thing being done to them by your city council or your state government. Here's how you can help, and have a history of actually winning on that.
So you've talked about the divide in the libertarian movement between idealists and pragmatists. So how do you balance staying true to principles while also pushing for practical policy changes? An example of this may be like the big, beautiful bill right now. So there are parts of the bill that I like. There are parts of the bill that I don't like. But you kind of look at it and you throw your hands up and you're like, well, you've got 535 members of Congress. You've got 100 senators. You've got the president. You've got Elon Musk, and he had his opinion about it all. And you've got to find some sort of compromise. So how do you balance, sticking to your guns and saying, no, we shouldn't be spending this much. No, we shouldn't be putting this debt on the backs of our children, while also still trying to move policy forward and doing things that need to be done, like, in my opinion, funding the border wall at the southern border, or funding just whatever the cause of the day may be. How do you balance the pragmatism with staying true to your ideals?
I think when it comes to where we are at the federal level, we've reached a point of crisis whereby we are soon approaching a time where, like in our lifetimes, if you're under the age of say 70, within our lifetimes, at the current state of progress, we will reach a point where we could tax ourselves at the maximum and still not raise enough funds to pay off the interest on our debt. We are quickly approaching that. That's the only thing that matters, because at that point the federal government becomes truly insolvent, and we end up in a situation like what Greece or Venezuela or another country like that went through, with the exception being that when that happens to us, it'll do that to the rest of the world's economy as well, even more so. So I don't know that there's a compromise to be had at this point. I think really it is a matter of saying we have to spend less than we are bringing in, and we are beyond the maximum of what we should be bringing in to begin with. We're already hurting the economy with the amount of taxation we have. I don't know that there's a compromise there. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm in the Thomas Massie camp here and the Rand Paul camp here. And between those two, Rand Paul, I would say, is more moderate than Thomas Massie on saying, yeah, we might be running up some debt, but nothing like this. We've reached a point of insanity. This administration and this Congress is spending more than Biden did. It's insane.
Well, yeah, it is funny that when they were talking about, I think it was, what was it, the omnibus, where they just kept spending levels the same as the Biden administration. And that was the win. That's a win in Congress. Like, well, we didn't spend more, so that's good, right? Like, well, I mean, it's good-ish. Like, we'd like to see a little less, maybe.
We'd like to see a lot less. And at the end of the day, that's before it makes it into reconciliation, where they always add more. And there was talk, Speaker Johnson is, we always made fun of Nancy Pelosi for saying you have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. We're finding out that Johnson wants to add more to it after it's been passed. So you have to pass the bill to find out what we're going to add to it. This is this is why it had to start baseline less spending, because A, they always add more, and B, we need to be spending way, way, way less.
Continuing my conversation with Spike Cohen, founder and CEO of You Are the Power, and that's exactly what I want to talk about right now, Spike. So tell me about You Are the Power. This is kind of your grassroots activism organization out there, not only helping people out, but kind of spreading the word about the libertarian cause and the movement. How did it all get going? What is it that you exactly do, and maybe some success stories? Yeah,
so at You Are the Power, we find people who are having their lives ruined by out-of-control local and state-level government officials. We alert the public to what's happening. We put public pressure on those individual officials who actually did it, not just the government or that department or that council, but those specific individuals who did it. And we continue to apply pressure to them until they back off and do the right thing. And in the last 2 years, we have had a 100% success rate on that.
Really?
Yes.
So youarethepower.net, that's the web address. I was looking at it yesterday, and you guys kind of document, different, it's really families that you're helping out. And it seems like a lot of the struggles that they have are with maybe CPS. There's accusations of abuse or neglect, things like that. And you guys step in to help folks out. What's a success story you can speak to?
I can actually speak to one that concluded yesterday. Back in October of 23, one of the first families that we heard about, actually the first family we heard about, was the Hernandez family. Long story short on that, a mother and father brought their children to a children's hospital when one of them actually she was a newborn, and she had bruising and she was fussy. They found multiple fractures on her. Her medical results showed that she had some kind of a condition that was causing it, but they didn't wait for that information. The doctor just accused them of abuse. The children were taken from them. The parents were both arrested, and as a condition of their bond, they weren't allowed to speak with, talk to each other, or live next to each other, live with each other. And so not only overnight did they lose their children for no good reason, but they were legally estranged from one another. So they lost everything. And so when they finally spent tens of thousands of dollars to get the medical records and to go to family court to, let this all clear up, the family court judge wouldn't allow their medical evidence to be admitted as evidence. Instead, she just took the testimony of the child abuse pediatrician, who brought no evidence and no real reason to think that they were being abused. We found out about this. We heavily vetted it to make sure we weren't even inadvertently helping child abusers. Found out it was even worse than that. Put it forward to the public. Not only did we help get the family court judge to back off, but then many, many more families came out of the woodwork. It turns out, thanks to federal funding under Title 4D of the Social Security Act, the federal government is paying state child protection agencies for every time they accuse someone of abuse. And so the states set quotas for the number of abuse accusations there have to be. So they're just basically finding any child they can justifiably say is being abused, ignore any medical evidence to the contrary, and taking children under the color of law from innocent parents for the purpose of having them placed for adoption, which the last time I checked was called child trafficking. Now, success story. The Hernandez family, not only was their family court case dropped, but even after a criminal judge tried to railroad their case by not allowing the defense to present any exonerating evidence, thankfully the jury saw through that, and instead of being put in prison for 40 years each, the jury found them not guilty on all counts. And yesterday, the final official victory happened when the family court, once they had registered that they had been found not guilty on the criminal charges, those children are back home. Emma and Aria are back home with Matt and Tucky Hernandez. I actually spoke with them yesterday, and they got to watch a movie together in their own home for the first time in over 2 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just you mentioned they got to watch a movie together, something that anybody else listening right now probably takes for granted because it's just a simple thing. Like, hey, we get home and I watch a silly movie, whatever. But that family couldn't even do that. Yep. Is there recourse for that family after the fact? Can they go back and can they sue the state? I mean, they lost a lot of time and a lot of resources just trying to live their life, just get their kid back and, kids and live.
Yeah. So thanks to qualified immunity, that's going to be very hard. What will likely end up happening, and that'll be their decision to make, is if they decide to sue, the taxpayer will be on the hook for some kind of a settlement to make it go away for PR reasons so it doesn't affect the politicians involved, which, again, I might have lost some of our conservative friends there on qualified immunity, but the reality is qualified immunity only protects people when it's already been established they've done wrong. So if you've been told it's anything else, it isn't. It is exactly that. When it's been shown that they violated the law and violated someone's rights, then they get immunity. You would never get that. Only government officials get that. So anyway, now the better recourse is to fix this problem to begin with. So not only have we reunified their family and many other families in Georgia and other states as well, but we actually got legislation passed in Georgia called Ridge's Law, which actually fixes many of the problems at the state level that was causing these things to happen. Now, if you're accused of abuse, you get a second opinion. You are given the right, not only the right, but you are notified of your second opinion right to find a doctor of your choice to give a second opinion. And this is incredible, crazy that this wasn't the case to begin with. That doctor that accuses you of abuse has to actually attest in a written attestation that they actually reviewed your child's medical history before accusing you of abuse. That wasn't the case beforehand.
Is there any pushback for, say, a doctor that maybe is doing this and they have a history of doing it and they, end up losing in the court battle? They say, I think this person is, abusing their children, and it turns out to not be the case. Is there any punishment for somebody that maybe is just recommending too many cases? It's going just out of line when it comes to saying that this abuse is happening?
No, because in many states, the qualified immunity extends to them, even though they technically don't work for the government. They're working in government business, which gives them immunity on that. Some states aren't that way. But there's one doctor named Barbara Knox who works out of Wolfson's Children's Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida. She used to be the head of their of the child health programs in Alaska and Minnesota. She was kicked out of them because not only was she wrongly accusing people of abuse, but she was actually pressuring the people that worked under her to do the same. So she was actually trying to get the entire department to be a child trafficking organization. She was found out, and her punishment was she was let go there and hired at Wolfson. So this is a problem that's not going to be fixed until we fix the perverse funding incentive that is at the federal level. In the meantime, we can make a lot of changes at the state level that make it a lot harder for them to do this. But ultimately, the final fix here is going to be getting a federal fix, which is Social Security shouldn't even be funding these state programs to begin with. And if it is, it certainly shouldn't be doing it based on subsidizing a specific accusation, which is what's happening right now.
So with You Are the Power, you are one of the featured speakers at Freedom Fest this week here at the Palm Springs Convention Center. So tell me what you'll be talking about with your presentations. Are you just trying to get people to just kind of learn about the organization itself and the mission? How are you involved with Freedom Fest? What do you think is the importance of the mission of Freedom Fest? This open dialogue. You've got a lot of different speakers from different walks of life at Freedom Fest this week. Tell me about what you'll be speaking to at the event.
Yeah, so Freedom Fest is the largest grouping of liberty lovers from around the world, and it's every year. It's usually my favorite event of each year. I'm so excited to do it this year. I'm going to be doing what I always do, which is talking about spreading liberty. Primarily talking about what we do at You Are the Power, but they also have me on different panels discussing different things. I'm going to be on a panel discussing local solutions, which, You Are the Power, that's what we do. I'm going to be on another panel that's going to be more of a general one talking about freedom and spreading ideas behind freedom and liberty. I'm actually going to be interviewing Daryl Davis, who, for those who don't know, he's a well-known rock and blues musical artist who is known for being a black man who has befriended hundreds of Klan members
I've seen his story.
Gotten them to leave the Klan. I can't wait to be up there and talk with him about, why you would even want to befriend a Klan.
Why you to try to attempt this?
Why would you try to attempt this? And then how were you actually successful in getting, literally hundreds of people to leave the Klan?
I imagine it's just conversation. You actually engage with people and you learn that, look, maybe you don't agree on everything. I'm sure me and you don't agree on everything.
Yes.
But, you're having a conversation. You're just exchanging ideas. And, you realize that as humans, we do have more in common.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I on this show, I rip on the left all the time because, it's how I feel. But at the same time, I have a ton of friends who are Democrats. I have a ton of friends who vote differently than me.
Yep.
And we just don't talk politics. We just enjoy everything else that we share in common.
Yeah, and it turns out there's no laugher curve to that. You can sit down with your Democrat friend, or apparently you can sit down with your KKK friend and find common ground. And you can be a black person doing that apparently as well. So that is something I'm really looking forward to. Or later today, I'm also doing a shooting event with Firearms Policy Coalition. You know about them.
I'll be tagging along with you.
They are the best. Listen, if you are a member of the NRA, drop your NRA membership and become a member of Firearms Policy Coalition instead, because there is only one organization. Actually, there are two organizations, GOA, three. There's Black Guns Matter, Gun Owners of America, and Firearms Policy Coalition. Those are the ones that are doing the most to at all times defend the Second Amendment, not just when it helps the Republican Party like the NRA does.
So the Firearms Policy Coalition, I know they've been instrumental in pushing back on a lot of the anti-Second Amendment stuff here in the state of California.
Yeah.
Off air we were chatting, but they kind of, they'll comment on things and they'll submit amicus briefs to the court based on other things that are just generally, just things that are considered natural rights, because they realize that, if you lose one right, this next one could be next on the chopping block.
Yeah, absolutely. FPC is a gun rights organization that recognizes that you shouldn't wait until it's at your door. If there is a mechanism that the government is building that is going to infringe on your natural rights, you shouldn't even if you're a gun rights organization, you shouldn't just wait until it's now being used against gun rights. If it's obvious that it's going to be used against gun rights and you're a gun rights organization, you should be fighting it before it gets there. And so that's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of theirs. They understand that natural rights are natural rights. If government's coming for one of your rights, it's coming for all of them. Every time you give government more power, you're basically giving them another gun, which they promise not to to point at you, despite the fact that they've pointed every other gun you've ever given them at you already, and FPC recognizes that.
Hanging out with Spike Cohen. He is the founder and CEO of youarethepower.net. You can check him out online, youarethepower.net, spikecohen.com. Before we went to break, chatting a little bit about a debate you had with current DNC Vice Chair David Hogg, obviously very well known for his stance on the Second Amendment. Yeah. And so you guys had a debate at Dartmouth College. How did that go? How did the crowd respond to your pro-Second Amendment message? Do you feel like maybe you found some common ground with David Hogg?
So I don't know if we found common ground. Well, the thing is, so David Hogg's position on the Second Amendment has kind of moderated slowly over time. Everyone remembers him as the all guns should be banned and anyone who supports gun rights should be labeled a terrorist. He's more on the quote-unquote common sense gun reform side now, which is equally nonsensical, but it's at least like a more moderate position, other than everyone's guns should be taken from them by force, to reduce gun violence, because that's what would happen if you went door to door and tried to take every single American's guns. That would be less gun violence would happen as a result. Anyway, so no, the debate, it wasn't a debate as such. It was me presenting information and facts, and him just repeating "it's the guns" and "I feel safer in Europe" over and over again, and mentioning some admittedly terrible things that have happened, like death threats that have happened to him and his family and things like that. Those are all terrible things that no one should be doing. But it has absolutely nothing to do with gun rights. It's not the question of whether people should have guns or not. And so that's how that debate went. I will say on the issue of gun rights, and I did it more of as twofold. First of all, I'm a libertarian. If someone challenges me to a debate, I kind of have to do it. It's sort of in our programming that we have to debate things. But the bigger thing was to show that you could debate someone on a visceral issue without like resorting to name calling. And to David's credit, there was no name calling or anything like that. I did call David one of the greatest salesmen for guns ever. Every time he speaks, people buy guns reflexively. But I don't think that was name calling. But it was a good debate. Now, it was truly actually won by a woman named Lily Tang Williams, who at the Q&A portion of the debate at the end, she's from communist China. She's an exile from communist China. And she, said, hey, can you guarantee that that if gun control were to be enacted, that government wouldn't, would not violate my rights or harm me if it took my guns? And David, to his credit, said, I couldn't guarantee that. Of course, she said, well, then the gun control debate is over. You'll never take my guns. And that went viral, rightfully so. And she won that debate. So I think I came in second, though.
Well, that's a pretty good second place showing.
Yes.
That's kind of like the bomb getting dropped. Just like, well, guarantee that you won't violate my rights if you take my guns. Well, I can't do that. Well, then here we go.
Then the end of debate. Yeah, debate is over.
I feel like we could talk a whole lot longer about a whole host of things, but I know you've got to get going. You've got that FPC event coming up later on today. I will be joining you there. I'm looking forward to that very much. Spike, I appreciate your time today. Where can folks find you online? Social media, website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, if you want to be a part of what we're doing at You Are the Power, go to youarethepower.net. We'd love to have you be a part of it. There's you can sign up to be a member today. And if you want to follow the insanity that I do online, I'm pretty easy to find. You just look for Spike Cohen, any social media outlet, you'll find me there. I'm pretty loud. I'm not hard to find. You probably already found me and tried to not find me, but I'm there.
And he's going to be one of the featured speakers at Freedom Fest this week. FreedomFest.com. It's happening over the Palm Springs Convention Center. Kicks off today, runs through Saturday. I appreciate your time today, Spike. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.